Good morning from Hamburg, Germany. This is the A7R V from Sony. Funny enough, with a Canon lens on it, but we are here to take some staircase photos of some really unique buildings in the city. And I want to share with you why I got the A7R V. And it all starts right now. Let's go. I think some of you probably recognize this elevator here behind me. This is a Paternoster. It is an old style of elevator that was actually created originally in the UK and was used in Liverpool, I believe, for the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there used to be over 200 of these in Hamburg. Now there's only about 30, and most of them are not open to the public. So I'm really lucky in this building. This is Columbia House, that I can just walk in here and be able to take a look at this cool elevator and get a couple shots and a great intro to this video. Because this building is like accidentally Wes Anderson. It is very, very cool right here in the lobby with these tiles on the walls and this old sort of signboard here, and of course the elevator itself. So good start. All right, we're back outside, and I wanted to touch on a couple of points to why I wanted to get the A7R V. And the first one really is the tilting and articulating screen. I love the tilt function. I think it's a really something that I liked from the A7 III in Sony and the older A7R series, but I always wanted the articulating screen from Canon, Panasonic, etc. for vlogging. So having the availability to do both is just genius. It's a really smart design, and I love it. The tilt, especially for indoors, tight spaces, that staircase we were just at, you know, other architecture scenarios where you don't have a lot of space up so you can see what you're doing, is a massive advantage. Some crazy construction going on in Hamburg right now. All right, the next thing I think I'm gonna really like with the A7R V is the in-body built-in autofocus stacking. So focus stacking, for you landscape photographers, you know what I'm talking about. We do it a lot, and I used to do it all the time in manual focus, and I would take maybe like 5 to 7 shots, you know, making sure that every plane of focus, at least that I thought was gonna be in focus, and then stacking those together in Photoshop. And sometimes you would miss a small part of the frame or a small part of the focus, depending on how shallow your depth of field is with your subject in the foreground. So the fact that this does that automatically in the camera is really nice. I think the next step, honestly, would be the camera processing those images so that you end up with only one file. And still, we have to stitch them ourselves, which luckily isn't very hard. But the fact that that focus stacking is built in is really nice. All right, we are in the second building. This is the Leitzenhof. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I'm almost getting there with the German after 2 years. But the Leitzenhof is really cool. I've never been here before, and I saw some photos of it, and I thought I gotta go and try and check that out with the A7R V. Another great example of where the Sony A7R A7R5 will be very handy is the 61 megapixel sensor. So I know that's a bit overkill, and I have been watching a ton of videos about it, and I've shot a lot at like 30, 33, 35 megapixels. Totally fine even for printing, but what I want the 61 for is this kind of detail, to be able to get the detail and the croppability factor for architecture and wildlife and landscapes and all of those things. It's really nice to be able to crop in on. So this is a great example of where the Sony A7R5 is going to be really nice, is all the detail in these awnings, in the railings, in the ceiling, and all the small parts of this really well balanced architecture image. Quickly, I forgot to mention that in this case, it was a 7-shot bracket at f11 because I don't need to focus stack in this case when I'm at 24 millimeters, nice and wide, and you've got kind of almost a 2D scene above me. So 7-shot bracket to manage the dynamic range, and I think that's gonna stitch together real nice. All right, and we've left the Bionz-xr building. We're back on the streets, so I hope there's not too much background noise. But what an awesome example of architecture here in the city of Hamburg. That was a very cool building, and really wasn't expecting those 2 elevators today. So that was a bit of a bonus on my side, and I hadn't been there before, so that was a really cool find here in the city, and feeling very privileged to be able to photograph those buildings. I know there's a lot of cities in the world where photographing buildings is kind of a no-no. So everybody I met in there was totally happy with me photographing. There were another couple of photographers taking some shots, and yeah, here we are outside, you know, not even an hour in there with some beautiful photos to show. And the A7R5 did a great job. This was the first test to get it out into the wild. I've had it for only about a week now, and I'm going to Patagonia next week, by the way. So this is kind of an upgrade going into that job, but I also bought it as an investment. I think that this camera will, well, I know it'll be my primary stills camera, but I think it'll last me for about 5 years. That's sort of my hope, at least. I'm sure Sony's gonna come out with an updated version of probably the sensor at some point, because this is the same sensor as the A7R4, but in my mind, that's not really a bad thing. It kind of proves that that sensor is a really good quality product. So they've kind of nailed the tech there and then just built around it with the new Bionz processor. And of course, you know, you've got your tilt and articulating screen, the AI autofocus, the focus stacking that's built in. A lot of these features I will be able to utilize and I believe justify the price. So even though I had the A7 IV for only like 4 months, the reason that I didn't end up buying that in Canada when I was home at Christmas was because it was too expensive. Now, shout out to Camera Canada, where I bought the A7 IV and the 100-400 and one of those Sony Tough cards. You know, my bill was already pretty big. So I was like, well, I can't really justify adding the A7R5 on right now. You know, I need to work a little bit more and save some more money. So I'm glad I got the A7 IV. I'm glad I got to test it in the field down in Antarctica. But it did prove to me that no, that my primary stills camera needs to be more of like a flagship stills camera. And the A1 is is too far out of my price range and also is kind of a hybrid, and I'm looking for a stills camera because I already have the A7S III that I'm filming on right now, which is a fantastic video camera. So very happy to have that R series from Sony to fill that gap for me, and being able to bump up, you know, to 2 times the megapixels to 61 is huge for architecture, for landscapes, being able to crop in all those details for printing in the future. All those things are really, really good. So it's a 5-year investment for me, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to see what we can create with this awesome camera. So hope you've enjoyed this video, and stick with us. The next one will be down in Patagonia, heading back to South America, and I will see you in Chile and Argentina.